Chapter 336. The major factions in Yuzhou did not stay idle either. First, the Yuzhou officials updated the ranking of the major factions. The World Society squeezed out the White Lotus School and entered the top 10, ranking 10th. This attracted the attention of almost everyone in Yuzhou. On the internet, people kept exclaiming, "World Society? What faction? I've never heard of it before." Yes, not only have I never heard of it before, but I've also searched for information on the World Society. It says that the World Society did not exist before the martial arts competition. In other words, they are a newly formed faction. It's already shocking enough for a new force to make it into the top 100. They can actually fight their way into the top 10. What do they have? Some people who knew the truth came out and replied, because they have at least 11 hunters and a summoner who can summon a level 5 mutated desolate beast. As soon as this statement came out, there were countless comments below. 11 desolate hunters? Are you serious? F***CK, 11 hunters and a summoner who can summon a level 5 mutated beast. With such strength, it shouldn't be a problem for them to enter the top 5. Why are they only ranked 10th? That's why it's not credible. Some people who knew the truth came out again. What do you know? Didn't you see the word tentative behind their ranking? They had only sent 15 people to the martial arts assembly. Among these 15 people, there were 11 desolate hunters. Therefore, no one knew how many desolate hunters there were among the gang members who did not go. Plus, their gang leader won the championship. Therefore, it's a bit unfair for them to be ranked 10th. I see. Wait, am I the only one who noticed this summoner? Is there really a summoner? It must be fake. Didn't they go extinct long ago? If there really is a summoner, it's impossible that there hasn't been any news about it for thousands of years. Therefore, many people began to doubt the authenticity of the summoner. However, some people who were at the scene immediately released pictures and videos. In the video, Immortal was controlling the summoned beast to attack another mutated desolate beast. Because the video was too bloody, some parts were censored. Of course, there were still some trolls who thought that the video was fake. But soon, someone refuted. If it's fake, how can the officials rank the World Society in the top 10? Can you use your brain? With this kind of IQ, I'm afraid he'll have to say goodbye to the internet in the future. I was there at the time, and there were more than 10,000 people there. So many people took videos and photos. It can't be that everyone's photos are fake. At the same time, professionals quickly gave their analysis results. Just now, I've asked a professional team to evaluate the video. The results show that the video is real. This instantly silenced many people. Of course, there was nothing that a troll wouldn't shoot. Do you think I'll believe you just because you say you're a professional team? And even if you are really professionals, who knows if you have an affair with the person who made the video? That's right. Nowadays, on the internet, people are fake, things are fake, and feelings are fake. Everything is fake. I don't have King believe that there really is a summoner. The two sides were arguing so fiercely that even the government came out to speak. The official of Yuzhou province released a 5-minute video. In the video, it showed how the two summoners summoned the mutated desolate beasts and how they fought. Everything was crystal clear. This time, most of the haters shut up. After all, the official video was still very convincing. However, there were always some haters who were skeptical of everything. The official video might not be real. It's not like the official video hasn't been fake before. These people could no longer be called haters. They were haters. They were haters for the sake of haters. In their eyes, there was nothing they couldn't do. If you did bad things, they could slander you. If you did good things, they could also slander you. If you didn't do anything, they could still morally kidnap you. Even if you couldn't take care of yourself and didn't want to live anymore, they could still slander you. However, at this point in time, there were very few brainless haters like this. At the same time, in the headquarters of Yuzhou province's military, Lu Shuming had already submitted the report about Immortal. In the past, the reports that were submitted had to go through layers of review and approval. Basically, it would take a month for a reply. But this time, the approval was given in just half a month. Get Mo sure to join the military at all costs. When Lu Shuming saw this reply, he smiled bitterly. If he could really get Mo sure to join, wouldn't he have joined long ago? Based on the last time he met Mo sure, it was basically impossible to get Mo sure to join. However, a soldier's duty was to obey orders. The higher-ups only needed to issue orders. If he couldn't fulfill them, then he was incompetent and had neglected his duty. It seemed that he had a long way to go before he could let Mo sure join the military. Fortunately, people's thoughts were not static. Perhaps after a period of time, Mo sure's views would change after experiencing certain things. Thus, he needed an opportunity. At the same time, the powers that had attacked Mo sure had basically gone into hiding. Each of them had at most 2 or 3 desolate hunters. When they had attacked world society, their desolate hunters had suddenly disappeared. They had most likely been killed by world society. For these powers, this was definitely a huge blow. Under such circumstances, they didn't dare to leak this matter. If other powers knew that they had lost a desolate hunter, they might take the opportunity to attack them. Previously, they had wanted to kill Mo sure to raise their ranking. But now, not only had they failed to raise their ranking, they had also lost a desolate hunter and a few mechas. This was really like trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice. As for the other powers led by Corpse Village, they had been very quiet these days and hadn't made any moves. Corpse Village had lost a level 7 desolate hunter. This was a huge blow to them. As for the other major powers, it was because they all looked up to Corpse Village. Since Corpse Village hadn't made any moves, they naturally wouldn't make any moves either. As for the White Lotus Society, although they didn't know about this news, they were still very familiar with the top 10 powers. Given the character of the top 10 powers, they would definitely make some moves now that Mo sure was out of the picture. Since they hadn't made any moves, something must have gone wrong. Since they didn't know what the problem was, it was best for them to bide their time. Wait and see. In this way, Mo sure and world society would have some time to develop. Chapter 337. The forces in Yuzhou didn't dare to act rashly. The first-ranked Corpse Village had lost a level 7 desolate hunter and 10 mechas, so they needed to recuperate. In addition, they needed to study the secrets of the incomplete dragon vein. Therefore, they wouldn't act for the time being. The second-ranked Tiandao sect wanted to study the map of the ancient battlefield. Naturally, they wouldn't act either. Seeing that these two forces didn't act, the other forces naturally wouldn't act either. In this way, it gave Mo sure a great opportunity to develop. At this time, Mo sure was still killing these desolate beasts at the bottom of the sea. Now that he was a level 7 desolate beast hunter, the benefits of hunting level 7 desolate beasts weren't that great. Therefore, he left the sea area and went deeper into the sea to hunt level 8 desolate beasts. Level 8 desolate beasts were naturally more difficult to deal with than ordinary level 7 desolate beasts. Therefore, Mo sure still only let 2 level 8 desolate beasts in at the beginning. Even so, he seemed to be struggling. Of course, this was only because he didn't use any energy. If he went all out, with his current strength, he had no problem crushing a level 1 desolate hunter. Even if he faced a level 2 desolate hunter, he would have a 50% chance of winning. A level 7 desolate hunter on par with a level 2 desolate hunter. This was extremely rare even in the history of the Flaming Origin continent. As time passed, Mo sure killed these level 8 desolate beasts faster and faster. He estimated that in another 2 to 3 months, he should be able to advance to a level 8 desolate hunter. By then, the Sea Dragon clone would advance to a level 8 desolate beast. Even if he faced any powerhouse in Corpse Village, his chances of winning should be very high. On this day, Mo sure floated to the surface of the sea to rest during a break in the battle. The bottom of the sea was dark and cold. With Mo sure's eyesight, he could see in the dark. With his physique, he wasn't afraid of the cold. However, staying at the bottom of the sea in the dark and cold with desolate beasts all around him would make his mind tense and depressed. If he was tense and depressed for a long time, he would probably go crazy. Therefore, Immortal would come to the surface of the sea to rest every once in a while. They stopped on an uninhabited island and set up the virtual sentry tower. Immortal was lying under the shade of a tropical tree, drinking beer and eating skewers. Of course, this beer and kebabs were not obtained by Immortal from the system. Now, every time he signed in, he could sign in a few drops of Titan dragon blood. If he used it to sign for beer and kebabs, it would be too wasteful. These things were all made by the people in the base. This world was not like Earth, where infected creatures were everywhere. Therefore, there were more ingredients and time to make some exquisite or refreshing food. Enjoying the sea breeze, drinking wine and eating skewers, one had to say that it was a kind of enjoyment. At this moment, the virtual sentry tower's alarm suddenly sounded in Immortal's mind. Immortal immediately probed with his draconic will. About 200 kilometers away, two people appeared. A man and a woman. The man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful. The man was LV-10, and the woman was LV-8. The man must have brought the woman to level up by killing monsters. They jumped out of the sea, and the hoverboards under their feet quickly activated, flying towards the sky. At this moment, the woman's body seemed to be out of control and quickly fell towards the sea. Seeing this, the man was shocked. Little 5, then he quickly flew towards the girl. He grabbed the girl and tried to pull her up. But soon, even he couldn't fly steadily, and his body kept swaying. A moment later, the two let out a scream at the same time and fell into the sea. Immortal saw this and was slightly surprised. He could feel that the wild beast that attacked the two just now should have used psychic power. On the flaming origin continent, some wild beasts could indeed use psychic power. But such wild beasts were extremely rare. Most people would almost never see one in their lifetime. At the same time, this made Immortal's heart tremble slightly. He quickly ate the skewers of meat and gulped down the beer in his hand. Then he leaped 2 steps and arrived at the sea where the man and woman disappeared. He probed with his draconic will. He saw that more than 100 meters below the dark blue sea, a wild beast that looked like a lobster was slowly diving. This lobster's 2 thick pincers were clamping the man and woman. No matter how they struggled, they couldn't break free from the lobster's attack. Immortal used the blood dragon's eye to look at the lobster. Species, devil dragonfish. Level, LV-8 wild beast, LV-9 psychic master. Ability, psychic attack. Immortal laughed. A lobster was a lobster, not a devil dragonfish. But Immortal was still a little surprised that this guy's psychic power had reached the level of a LV-9 psychic master. At this moment, the devil dragonfish used its psychic power to detect Immortal's arrival. It opened its mouth and let out a roar. A huge amount of psychic power attacked Immortal directly. Under its psychic power, Immortal was suppressed to the point that he couldn't breathe. After all, Immortal's dragon will was only LV-4 at the moment. But although he couldn't use his dragon will to counterattack, he could still use his dragon will to protect himself. The devil dragonfish saw that its psychic power couldn't hurt this human. It was a little surprised and curious. It immediately increased the output of its psychic power. But no matter how much psychic power it used, it couldn't increase its level, so it couldn't hurt Immortal. Immortal jumped down from the sky and entered the water. He used his psychic power to shield the surrounding seawater. At the same time, the blood dragon's wings spread and flew toward the devil dragonfish. The devil dragonfish's 200-meter-long feelers were like 2 giant pythons, attacking Immortal. But Immortal's flying speed was too fast, so he easily passed through the 2 feelers. In a flash, he was already at the devil dragonfish's abdomen. He raised his right fist. Bang! He threw a punch at the devil dragonfish's energy bubble. The energy bubble suddenly burst like a deflated balloon. The devil dragonfish kept screaming and stretched out several long legs. But these long feelers didn't want to attack Immortal. Instead, they were struggling to block the energy bubble. However, with its slender legs, it was impossible for it to block the broken energy bubble. Seeing this, its pair of small eyes turned blood red. It opened its pair of giant pincers and threw the man and woman away. Then, it fiercely pounced on Immortal. But without the support of energy, Its giant pincers didn't have any strength. Immortal didn't even have to dodge. He kicked the giant pincers that were swinging at him. The giant pincers were like dead wood that was blown by the wind. They were instantly broken into two. Chapter 338. The devil arowana had lost its energy and one of its pincers. Its telekinesis could not affect Immortal too much. At this moment, fear finally appeared in its pair of blood-red eyes. It turned around and tried to escape. Immortal could not be bothered with it. Without its energy, even if it managed to escape, it would not be able to survive for long. As expected, its legs stopped moving before it could escape for more than a kilometer. Eventually, its legs started to twitch. Its body slowly turned over and floated to the surface of the sea. It was no longer breathing. At the same time, a system notification sounded in Immortal's mind. Devil arowana killed. Obtained 8 drops of Titan dragon blood. Obtained a strand of dragon consciousness. The dragon consciousness in Immortal's body was suddenly much larger than before. Hearing the notification, Immortal was a little surprised. He asked in his mind, "Can I obtain dragon consciousness by killing the devil arowana?" The system's response was immediately heard in his mind. Devil arowana has a strand of the giant dragon Xianxia's bloodline. Therefore, dragon consciousness can be obtained by killing the devil arowana. Immortal heard and thought to himself. His dragon consciousness had not improved for a long time, since he could obtain dragon consciousness by killing the devil arowana. If there were more devil arowanas, wouldn't his dragon consciousness be able to reach level 5 very quickly? At the same time, the man and woman looked at Immortal as if they were looking at a monster. Judging from the momentum of Immortal's attack, he was obviously a level 7 scavenger. It was not strange for a level 7 scavenger to kill a level 8 devil arowana. But the strange thing was that he was not affected by the devil arawana's telekinesis. What shocked them the most was that Immortal did not use any energy at all. He killed the devil arowana in an instant with just a fist. This kind of combat power was crazy. How could there be such a crazy guy in the world? However, this place was not safe. Since the two of them had escaped the control of the devil arowana, they quickly swam towards Immortal. At the same time, they kept gesturing to Immortal to leave. Then, the two of them swam to the surface of the sea. When he reached the surface of the sea, he quickly activated his hoverboards and flew out for over 100 kilometers. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. At this moment, Immortal took a step forward and appeared behind them. When the two of them turned around, they saw Immortal following them. They looked at each other, then clasped their fists at Immortal and performed the ancient etiquette. The man said, "Thank you for saving us. If it weren't for you, the two of us wouldn't have been able to escape today." Immortal waved his hand. Okay. He actually didn't want to save these two people. He only wanted to kill the devil arowana. Saving these two people was just a bonus. The man continued, "My name is Duanmu, and I'm from the Duanmu family of the Cloud Prefecture. You saved us, so we should thank you." The young man spoke in an imposing manner. He didn't seem like an ordinary playboy. The woman also said, "If you need money, goods, or cultivation resources, you can do it." Immortal shook his head. Money, goods, or cultivation resources were useless to him. Seeing this, the young man with the surname Duanmu thought for a while and asked, "Then what do you want? Just say it." In the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, our Duanmu family is also one of the top families. Just say something big, and there's nothing the Duanmu family can't do. Hearing this, Immortal's heart skipped a beat. He actually had some understanding of the Duanmu family in the Yun state. Even in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, they were one of the top 5 families. Corpse Village Tiandao sect. In front of the Duanmu family, they were nothing. Immortal never expected that the desolate beast he had killed and the two people he had saved along the way were actually people from the Duanmu family clan. Since that was the case, he would let them owe him a favor for saving their lives. If he needed help in the future, he would go to the Duanmu family. Thinking of this, Immortal shook his head and said, "I don't need anything for now." You just need to tell me where you met the devil dragonfish. Seeing that Immortal didn't have any intention of flattering them after knowing that they were from the Duanmu family, Duanmu's impression of Immortal improved greatly. Those people in the past, after knowing that he was from the Duanmu family, would all flatter him and do whatever they could to get him. However, what they said were all lies. He had already taken precautions against such things. Could it be that as a member of the Duanmu family, they couldn't even hear a word of truth? And today, this young man who saved them didn't have any intention of flattering them. This made him feel refreshed. He thought for a while and stopped being pretentious. He just remembered Immortal's favor of saving his life in his heart. Recalling what happened earlier, he replied, "Our family has already explored this area. Our clan has already scouted this region of the sea. The strongest beast here is only a grade 8 desolate beast. It shouldn't pose any danger to us. Ling and I came here to train. At the bottom of the sea, we found an underwater tomb. When we opened the entrance of the tomb, a big guy jumped out." Immortal nodded and said, "Got it." Then he plundered their memories and flew toward the sea surface where they had just escaped. Duanmu shouted, "Wait, brother, are you going?" Immortal nodded and said, "Yes." Duanmu said, "It's too dangerous there. No one knows how many of these guys are in the tomb. If you go down alone, I'm afraid." Immortal turned his head and smiled. "Are you afraid that I'll take all the good things in there?" Duanmu shook his head and patted his chest. "Am I that kind of person? Without you, we would have been eaten by the wild beasts. You taking the things there isn't taking all of them. That's what you should do. It's just that it's too dangerous down there." Immortal shook his head and said, "Don't worry about it." With that, his figure flashed and disappeared. The woman looked at the place where Immortal disappeared and asked, "Duanmu, did you say something wrong?" The man said, "I told you not to call me by my real name in front of outsiders." The woman snorted and pouted. "You're called Duanmu." The man stared at the woman. "That won't do. I'm the young master of the Duanmu family. Won't it be a joke if I'm called Duanmu?" The woman nodded. Okay, I'll call you young master Duanmu." "My young master Duanmu, did you say something wrong just now? He saved our lives, but you let him go with just a few words." Duanmu recalled every word he had just said and shook his head. "I don't think I offended him in any way." The woman asked again, "Then what do we do now?" The man thought for a moment and replied, "He's strong, but no one knows what's in the tomb below. What if there's even greater danger? So we'll ask the family to send reinforcements. If he's in danger, we can help and repay him for saving our lives." Chapter 339. Let's call the family over as soon as possible. If something happens to him, we can help. Duanmu said. The girl called Ling said, "Didn't you see him insta-kill a level 8 desolate beast with his bare hands just now? If he uses genetic and energy weapons, it should be easy to deal with a level 10 desolate beast. What danger can he be in?" Duanmu shook his head. "You haven't come out to train, so you don't know the danger at the bottom of the sea. Although he's strong, who can guarantee that there won't be any accidents? There's a good saying, you never know which comes first, tomorrow or danger. When you come out to train, the chances of encountering accidents greatly increase. So, it's better to be careful." Ling curled his lips. "How can the Duanmu family have such a cowardly young master like you?" Duanmu shook his head. "This isn't cowardice, it's caution. When it's time to be brave, I'm also very brave, okay?" Ling shook his head. "I can't tell." Duanmu chuckled. "You'll be able to tell tonight." Ling rolled his eyes at Duanmu, and a blush flashed across his face. Annoying. Immortal left the two of them. He came to the place where the two of them had met with an accident. He probed with his dragon will. Sure enough, he found that there was an underwater tomb more than 30,000 meters deep at the bottom of the sea. Because of the passage of time, the ancient tomb was covered in sand and gravel. There were also large corals. If one didn't observe carefully, they wouldn't be able to tell that this was an ancient tomb. At this moment, on the side of the ancient tomb, there was a huge hole about 50 meters in diameter. This was the hole that the two of them had just opened. According to the memories of the two of them, they had used some kind of bomb to blast open this hole. With a thought, Immortal used a level 7 desolate beast nearby to condense 2 virus clones. He ordered the 2 virus clones to investigate. Soon, the 2 virus clones dived into the water and reached 30,000 meters deep at the bottom of the sea, arriving at the hole. Looking inside the cave, it was pitch black. Even with the eyesight of these 2 virus clones, they couldn't see what was inside. One of the virus clones continued to swim into the dark hole. However, just as it reached the entrance of the cave, a gigantic dark red pincer suddenly stretched out from inside. It clamped down on the clone. He was quickly dragged into the darkness. The clone didn't even have time to scream before it disappeared. Immortal frowned slightly. The other doppelganger placed the virtual sentry tower at the entrance of the cave. After the virtual sentry tower appeared, everything within 200 kilometers was under Immortal's control. The originally dark tomb finally revealed its true appearance under the virtual sentry tower. The seabed tomb was enormous. The structure of the tomb had long been destroyed. Some of the things inside had long been corroded beyond recognition by the seawater. At the entrance of the tomb, there were 2 giant lobster-like devil arowanas guarding it. Looking further in, there were nearly 100 devil arowanas. These devil arowanas were about 70 to 80 meters long. The smallest ones were 40 to 50 meters long. Of course, this was only their normal form. If it was in its combat form, the smaller devil dragonfish would be at least 4 to 500 meters long. The bigger ones were probably over 1,000 meters long. With so many devil arowanas, it was impossible for Immortal to deal with them without using his energy. But in the blink of an eye, he thought of a solution. So he quickly flew into the water. Once he entered the water, he still used his telekinesis to shield these devil arowanas. When he arrived at the entrance of the cave, his dragon's telekinesis could already sense that the dragon's telekinesis of the devil arowanas in the tomb was so huge that he couldn't resist it at all. Fortunately, most of the devil arowanas hadn't noticed him yet. Therefore, they didn't exert their telekinesis on Immortal. Immortal paused. He took a deep breath. His figure flashed and instantly disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already at the center of the tomb. Around him, there were hundreds of devil arowanas emitting a fishy smell. Immortal roared and punched hard at the energy bubble in the abdomen of a devil arowana with his right fist. Bang! The abdomen of the devil arowana was instantly blasted open. A large amount of energy surged into its body, causing it to writhe in pain. When the surrounding devil arowanas heard the roar, they quickly turned their heads to look. Many devil arowanas directly probed with their dragon's telekinesis. With that, they found Immortal. Therefore, all the devil arowanas roared and attacked Immortal with their dragon's telekinesis. However, Immortal had already expected this move. His figure flashed and he was already at the entrance of the cave. At the same time, he punched at the energy bubble in the abdomen of a devil arowana at the entrance of the cave. Bang! Poof! After the energy bubble of this devil arowana exploded, the energy didn't rush into its body. It just flowed out. Its body also floated powerlessly in the water. When the rest of the devil arowanas saw this, they roared angrily. Their telekinesis pressed down on Immortal. Their bodies also chased after Immortal. However, Immortal had already used Dragon Shadow Step and leaped 1,000 meters away. Then he spread his blood dragon wings and flew forward quickly. The devil arowanas behind him reacted quickly and chased after him. Those who reacted slower were still shocked that their companion was killed. Immortal felt the telekinesis of more than 10 devil arowanas pressing down on him. His figure flashed and he instantly returned to the abdomen of the devil arowana at the front. He punched out. Bang! Poof! The devil arowana's energy bubble burst once again. When the rest of the devil arowanas reacted and pressed down on Immortal with their telekinesis. Immortal's figure flashed again and he had already escaped. He went back and forth. As he escaped, he killed these devil arowanas. Notifications kept coming in his mind. Killed 1 devil arowana. Obtained 8 drops of Titan dragon blood. Obtained a strand of dragon's telekinesis, killed 1 devil arowana. Obtained 8 drops of titan dragon blood. Obtained a strand of dragon's telekinesis. Just like that, Immortal led these hundreds of devil arowanas and played a cat and mouse game in the sea. These devil arowanas became angrier as they chased. These devil arowanas had always been very united. In addition, they were very powerful. Hence, some level 9 and 10 wild beasts did not dare to do anything to them. Now, a mere human was causing trouble in the territory of the devil arowana. They could not catch this human. How could they not be angry? In their anger, almost all of the devil arowanas chased after Immortal. Hence, one could see a human leading the way in front and a large group of devil arowanas following behind him. It was like a shepherd leading his flock to graze on the grassland. Chapter 340. Immortal was in the deep sea, playing a game of cat and mouse with the devil arowanas. These mushroom arowana fish were like ferocious cats. It was as if they could easily kill this mouse. But no matter what, they could not catch the mouse. And the mouse seemed to brush past the cats by a hair's breadth every time. But every time, it was able to avert the danger. The more the devil arowanas chased, the angrier they became. The angrier they were, the more brainless they became. Immortal took advantage of their brainless mistakes to kill 1 or 2 devil arowanas. At the same time, above the sea, there were about a dozen desolate hunters and a level 10 psychic master floating in the air. "Young Master Duanmu, are you okay?" the level 10 psychic asked. Duanmu shook his head and replied, "Ling and I are fine. It's just that the brother who saved us insisted on exploring the tomb below. That tomb is likely to be filled with devil arowanas, so he is likely to be in great danger." The level 10 psychic heard and immediately used his psychic power to investigate. Soon he found Immortal, who was being chased by a large group of devil arowanas. His expression changed slightly. Even a level 10 psychic like him would not dare to deal with such a large group of devil arowanas. After all, this was equivalent to more than 100 level 9 psychics. With so many level 9 psychics, a level 10 psychic like him would not be able to handle it. Thinking of this, he was about to call the other hunters to go down and save him. But at this moment he was slightly stunned. Because in his investigation, Immortal was not running away crazily. Instead, when he was running away, he took the time to go back and kill 1 or 2 devil arowanas before turning back and continuing to run. After observing for a while, he was surprised to find that Immortal was not running away. Instead, he was kiting the devil arowanas. He was using that strange footwork to teleport constantly. He was looking for opportunities to kill 1 or 2 devil arowanas. Although the psychic power of the devil arowanas was strong, because the target was too agile, they could not lock onto Immortal's position. Even if they had locked onto him, by the time their telekinesis attacks reached him, Immortal would have already disappeared. When the others saw the level 10 psychic master's expression, they were anxious, surprised, and shocked. They were all somewhat puzzled. What did this level 10 psychic master see? "Uncle Nien, have you found it? What's the situation?" Duanmu asked anxiously. Ling, who was beside him, was also a little anxious. "Uncle Nien, say something." The psychic master surnamed Nien still didn't say a word. This inevitably caused everyone to feel anxious. After a while, the psychic master with the surname Nien withdrew his psychic power and said to the crowd, "Fly 500 meters up." After saying that, he flew up first. The rest of the desolate hunters also flew into the sky. "Uncle Nien." Duanmu was a little anxious. "Is there no hope?" Ling was also a little anxious. "Uncle Nien, say something." The level 10 psychic master with the surname Nien smiled. "Follow me, he'll be here soon." Duanmu and Ling were surprised. Immediately, he controlled his hoverboard shoes and increased his altitude. They reached a height of 500 meters. Just as they stabilized themselves on the surface of the sea below. Splash, a figure instantly leaped out of the sea. When Duanmu saw the figure, he was delighted. "It's him." Ling nodded and smiled. "He should be fine." However, at the next moment, splash, 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 huge waves rose one after another. Almost 100 devil arowanas also leaped out of the sea. After leaping out of the sea, their speed skyrocketed. They chased after Immortal. When everyone saw this, they were all shocked. Even the desolate hunters had a slight change in expression. After all, these were equivalent to level 9 psychic masters. If any of them were surrounded by so many devil arowanas, they might not be able to escape. Even if they could escape, they might lose a layer of their skin. Duan Mumu hurriedly said, "Save him." Ling also said anxiously, "Uncles, please save him." The group of desolate hunters was about to take action. However, the psychic master with the surname Yen waved his hand to stop them. "Don't disturb him." The group of desolate hunters was stunned. "What do you mean?" Duan Mumu was also stunned. "Uncle Nyen, you mean?" At this moment, Immortal, who was being chased by almost 100 devil arowanas, flashed. He suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was in the middle of the group of devil arowanas. Then he threw a punch. Bang! The energy bubble in the abdomen of a devil arowana burst. The surrounding devil arowanas were stunned and quickly turned to attack Immortal. However, at this moment, Immortal's figure flashed again, and he disappeared from where he stood. He continued to flee forward. After a while, when he saw that the time was right, he repeated the same trick. After killing 2 more devil arowanas, he fled forward again. Although the devil arowanas were angry and kept roaring, they seemed to be unable to do anything to Immortal. All the desolate hunters were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. "This works too. I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this. This kid is only a level 7 desolate hunter, but he can explode with such terrifying combat power. It's really rare. Did you see that? He didn't use any energy or weapons. He's fighting these devil arowanas with his bare hands. He's fighting an entire school of devil arowanas with his bare hands. Apart from him, there's probably no one else in the world who can do this. This kid is to my liking." The group of desolate hunters was full of admiration. The psychic master with the surname Yen said, "With his strength, if he uses energy, killing these devil arowanas will be a piece of cake. So, there's no need to worry." When Duan Mumu and Ling heard this, their faces were filled with shock. The psychic master with the surname Yen continued, "His body movement is rare in the world. But what surprised me more was his familiarity with telekinesis. Ordinary people, even if they have such a body movement, would not dare to swim among the school of devil arowanas like him. After all, if they are not careful, they will be attacked by the telekinesis of the devil arowanas. Every time the telekinesis of the devil arowanas is about to attack him, he can teleport away. Even I am far from being able to have such a keen perception of telekinesis. Moreover, I have never seen this from any other psychic master." At this moment, a desolate hunter suggested, "Old Nyen, do you think, could he be a psychic master?" Old Nyen's eyes lit up when he heard this. He nodded, "Yes, it's possible." In fact, Old Nyen's guess was not wrong. Chapter 341. In fact, Old Nyen's guess was right. As Immortal was a long Nyen, he understood telekinesis very well. Hence, he was able to dodge the telekinesis attacks of the school of devil dragonfish. If the devil dragonfish's attacks landed on Immortal's body, they would be able to kill him in a very short period of time. Yes, to be able to dodge the telekinesis attacks of the school of devil dragonfish, you not only have to be careful, you also have to be brave. This young man is not bad. Old Man Yen praised again. Actually, he did not know that the reason Immortal dared to take such a risk and move between the school of devil dragonfish was because he still had a trump card. His dragon cave. If he was really hit by the telekinesis attacks of the devil dragonfish, although it would be very dangerous, he could still buy a second or two by using his dragon consciousness. This second or two was enough for him to take out the dragon cave and enter. As long as he entered the dragon cave, no matter how strong the devil dragonfish were, they could not do anything to him. Just like that, Immortal looked like he was running away pathetically. However, whenever he had the chance, he would kill 1 or 2 devil dragonfish. In such battles, he obtained more and more dragon consciousness. When the last devil dragonfish was killed by him, in his mind, a notification from the system sounded frowny face killed 1 devil dragonfish. Obtained 1 strand of dragon consciousness. Dragon consciousness has reached its limit. You can enter. Do you want to level up? Immortal heard and was overjoyed. His dragon consciousness could finally level up. Level up, Immortal said in his mind. The system's voice sounded frowny face. This level up requires 24 hours. You are not allowed to use dragon consciousness again within 24 hours. Immortal felt that 24 hours was not a problem at all. At most, he would sleep in the dragon cave for a day and a night. At this moment, Immortal flapped his blood dragon wings and left the sea surface. With his current strength, if he used all his strength, he would have no problem dealing with creatures below level 2 mutated dire beasts. However, he could not use dragon consciousness now. His surroundings were dark and he could not see anything. Who knew if there would suddenly be a level 2 or lower mutated wild beast in the vicinity? Therefore, it was better to be safe than sorry. More than 500 meters in the air, when those people saw Immortal fly up, they were all shocked. A level 7 scavenger taking on 100 devil arowanas alone was already shocking enough. Most importantly, this guy was still unarmed. One punch after another, the 100 devil arowanas were all killed. This level of shock was no less than seeing a beautiful woman running naked on the streets. At this time, Duan Mumu came up to Immortal and said, "Brother, are you all right?" Immortal shook his head and looked at the people behind Duan Mumu. Duan Mumu said, "Oh, these are all members of our Duanmu clan. Previously, I was afraid that something would happen to you, so I called them over to give you a hand. But now it seems that my worries were unnecessary." Immortal smiled and said, "Thanks." Duan Mumu waved his hand and looked very bold. "What are you thanking me for? You saved our lives, so it's only right that we help you. It's a pity that we couldn't help you this time." The people behind Duan Mumu cupped their hands to Immortal. The old man smiled. "Thank you for saving young Master Duanmu. If you need anything in the future, feel free to come to our Duanmu clan in Yunzhou." Immortal nodded. "Okay, got it." Duan Mumu said, "Brother, why don't you come to our Duanmu clan now? I think you and I hit it off. Come to our Duanmu clan and have a good drink." Immortal shook his head. "No, I have something to do." Then he looked at the bottom of the sea. Duan Mumu said, "You mean the seabed tomb?" Immortal shook his head. "I just checked it. It's empty. But there's another exit under the tomb. There should be a lot of devil arowanas inside." Duan Mumu gave him a thumbs up. "Brother, you're awesome. I'm ashamed of my inferiority." Immortal smiled. "Don't tell me you're called Duanmu." Duan Mumu had an awkward expression on his face, but then he smiled generously. "Since you saved my life, I'll tell you the truth. My 5 elements lack wood, so there's a mu in my name. Together, I'm called Duan Mu." In fact, Immortal had already known his name from his memory. He smiled. "A good surname is ruined by this name." Duan Mumu also showed a helpless look. "Well, there's nothing I can do. Let these sad memories go with the wind." At this time, the old man whispered to Duan Mumu, "Young master, Madam wants you to go back as soon as possible. She has something to do." Duan Mumu nodded and cupped his hands to Immortal. "Brother, your name is?" Immortal said, "Immortal." Duan Mumu smiled. "Doomsday? What a strange name. A good surname is ruined by this name." Immortal nodded. "Yes." Duan Mumu said, "Then that's it. Brother, I have something to do. I'll take my leave first." Then he turned and flew away. The others also cupped their hands to Immortal, turned, and flew away. Immortal looked at the backs of these people and a sincere smile appeared on his face. The people of the Flaming Continent were unpredictable. But this group of people was one of the very few people he met who didn't have any bad intentions. He saved their lives and they only wanted to repay him. Although after he showed such strength, they wanted to make friends with him more. However, this was only human nature. For the sake of the development of the base, even Immortal would try to make friends with others if he had such an opportunity. After those people left, Immortal took out the dragon's den from his system backpack with a thought. Then he got in and had a good sleep. This sleep lasted nearly 20 hours. After all, continuously fighting in the school of devil dragonfish was still very mentally draining. When he woke up, he played the game for more than 5 hours. Speaking of which, this game of the Flaming Continent was really addictive. Once he started playing, he couldn't stop. So 5 hours passed in the blink of an eye for Immortal. Just as he was playing excitedly, a system notification popped up in his mind. Promotion successful. Immortal was overjoyed when he heard this. He looked at his attribute interface. Name Immortal, level 7 Hunter, level 5 Long Xianxia, evolution path, Titan Dragon, phew. Immortal let out a long breath. The level of the dragon mind had finally reached level 5. A level 5 Long Xianxia was equivalent to a level 10 Psychic Master. When a level 10 Psychic Master faced a level 10 Scavenger, he could easily win. In other words, the current Immortal, even if he didn't make a move, could crush a level 10 Hunter with just the dragon mind. But in Immortal's opinion, this was not enough. So after he ate something, he left the dragon cave. Once again, he plunged into the sea. Chapter 342. Although he had leveled up to level 5 Long Xianxia, Immortal was still not satisfied. Hence, he left the dragon's cave and dived into the sea. Level 5 dragons could detect up to 250 kilometers away. Furthermore, he was able to find out more details. Hence, even though he had just entered the sea, he could detect everything in the tomb at the bottom of the sea. The last time he entered the tomb, he had already detected that there was a big hole in the tomb that led deeper into the cave. Although he did not have the time to investigate what was in the hole. However, there should be some devil dragonfish. Soon he arrived at the tomb. At this moment, Immortal was already empty. This was just an empty shell. There were no antiques or treasures. There were no devil dragonfish either. Immortal first used the corpse of the devil dragonfish outside to create a virus clone. Then he let the virus clone enter the tomb. After that, he placed the virtual sentry tower in the dark hole in the tomb. The virtual sentry tower kept sinking. Immortal's dragons were connected to the virtual sentry tower and continued to investigate everything in the hole. In his investigation, the hole was very big. It was so big that even his dragons could not detect its edges. One must know that Immortal's dragon was able to scan a radius of 250 kilometers. Immortal had never seen such a huge cave. At first, the huge cave seemed very empty. In the entire cave, there were no other living things except for some microorganisms. The virtual sentry tower continued to sink. Gradually, it sank down to about 10 kilometers. Some small dire beasts started to appear. The smallest of them was only 4 to 5 meters long. These dire beasts were more or less emitting fluorescent light. In the dark sea, they were very conspicuous. It could be seen that the bodies of these dire beasts were basically translucent. Some were even completely transparent. Some were like long plastic pipes. Some were like a wide plastic film. As it continued to sink, it could be seen that it was getting brighter. Of course, the light did not come from the sun. It came from the layer of jellyfish-like things below. The diameter of each jellyfish's head was more than 50 meters. Its body length reached over 500 meters. Each jellyfish had long tentacles. These tentacles ranged from 100 meters to 1,000 meters long. Thousands of jellyfish spread a layer in the water. At a glance, it looked like a layer of translucent plastic floating in the water. Some of these jellyfish emitted red light, some blue light, and some purple light. All sorts of colors. It looked like a neon sign wrapped in plastic. Immortal had seen this kind of desolate beast before when he had read about the desolate beasts on the Flaming Dawn continent. Why are jellyfish? Their bodies contained highly corrosive poison. Moreover, their long tentacles looked very soft, but when they attacked, they could become as hard and straight as steel needles. Therefore, It was called the iron thread jellyfish. These iron wire jellyfish, although each of them was only at level 5. However, because they were social animals, there were at least 100,000 of them in each group. In addition to releasing deadly toxins, they could also secrete a nerve-paralyzing toxin during battle. This nerve-paralyzing toxin didn't seem to be very powerful at first. One couldn't even feel its existence. However, as time passed, it would slow down the enemy's movements. Therefore, even some desolate hunters didn't want to encounter a group of iron wire jellyfish. As they continued down, the light became brighter. There were more and more desolate beasts around them. There were all kinds of desolate beasts. However, these desolate beasts were all below level 8. As they continued down, Immortal finally saw the desolate beasts that he wanted to see. Devil dragonfish. Moreover, the number of devil dragonfish here seemed to be much more than before. Immortal estimated that there were at least 30,000 to 40,000 of them, if not 50,000. Many of these devil dragonfish gathered beside a lava river at the bottom of the cave. Many of them swam directly into the lava river. Some devil dragonfish even opened their mouths to drink the lava in the river. Immortal was secretly surprised. These devil dragonfish were the real deal. He looked over with the blood dragon's eye. Species, devil dragonfish. Level 8 mutated desolate beast. Ability, lava breath. Immortal was slightly surprised when he saw this. These devil dragonfish could spit lava. It seemed that he had to be more careful later. With his physique, he wouldn't be afraid of the lava for a short period of time. However, after 5 minutes, the lava would cause great damage to his body. Next, Immortal used his dragon psyche to shield himself from the seawater and flew towards the cave entrance. Soon, he flew below the cave entrance. After flying down for a while, some desolate beasts swam over and tried to attack Immortal. Immortal used his dragon psyche to scan. Rip! Those desolate beasts were torn into pieces. The surrounding seawater was instantly dyed into a bloody mist. With his level 5 dragon psyche, there was no problem in tearing these level 5 desolate beasts apart. Gradually, there were more and more desolate beasts around. However, Immortal's target was the lowest level devil dragonfish. He didn't want to be entangled with these desolate beasts. Therefore, he used his dragon psyche. Rip, rip, rip. Accompanied by the sound of cloth being torn, the desolate beasts that attacked him were basically torn into pieces. The surrounding seawater was no longer transparent. Instead, it had turned blood red. As far as the eye could see, within a radius of tens of kilometers, everything was blood red. The smell of blood spread and attracted more desolate beasts. However, as these desolate beasts' levels weren't too high, with Immortal's current strength, he could easily use his dragon psyche to tear these desolate beasts apart. Therefore, when Immortal flew down, it was considered very smooth. After a while, he came to the iron thread jellyfish layer. From here, the iron thread jellyfish covered the entire layer. It was as if someone had specially planned it here. Even if it was a desolate hunter, he would probably have to suffer if he wanted to go over. However, to Immortal, this was not a problem. He used the dragon shadow step and teleported to the bottom of the iron thread jellyfish layer. Looking up, those iron thread jellyfish didn't realize that a human had passed them. Immortal continued to fly down. After more than 10 minutes, he was finally not far from the bottom of the sea. From here, he could already see the fiery red lava river flowing slowly. As there was a lava river here, the water temperature was dozens of degrees higher than above. Of course, for the current Immortal, this high temperature was nothing at all. Looking around, near the lava river, the tens of thousands of devil dragonfish seemed to be enjoying the high temperature here. Chapter 343. Immortal looked at the devil dragonfish. They were swimming freely near the lava river. They seemed to be enjoying everything here. He shook his head. "I'm sorry to disturb your happy life." Then he used his dragon psyche to check the surroundings. The underwater cave was too huge. His draconic will could reach out to a radius of 250 kilometers. But he still could not reach the end of the cave. However, a radius of 250 kilometers was enough for him to use his dragon psyche. He used the blood dragon's eye to check the devil dragonfish again. After confirming that there was nothing like the devil dragonfish king, he was relieved. Then he teleported to the vicinity of a devil dragonfish. The blood dragon's eye quickly found the weakness of this devil dragonfish. Its weakness was not the energy bubble in its abdomen. These devil dragonfish relied on the magma sacs on both sides of their backs. These two magma sacs could produce magma or store magma. The devil dragonfish could still fight without energy. But if the magma sacs were to explode, they would be burned to death by the magma produced in their bodies. It was the same principle as if a poisonous snake's venom sacs were to explode, it would poison itself to death. If a hunter did not know this secret and attacked the energy bubble directly, what awaited him would be roasted into a pig by the magma. Immortal clenched his right fist and exerted force directly toward the magma sacs of the devil dragonfish. Bang! There was a loud noise. The magma sacs in the devil dragonfish exploded. A large amount of magma splattered everywhere. Fortunately, he had teleported away. Otherwise, he would have been burned by the magma too. After the magma sacs of the devil dragonfish exploded, the boiling magma immediately made it roll and struggle. But it was of no use. Soon, a large amount of magma boiled the surrounding water. In the end, the devil dragonfish became half roasted and half boiled. The rest of the devil dragonfish noticed the abnormality and immediately used their telekinesis to check it out. But Immortal had teleported away. At the same time, he activated his stealth camouflage skill. Previously, when he was dealing with the 100+ devil dragonfish, he did not activate his stealth camouflage skill because there were not many of them. Although it looked very dangerous, it was actually not too difficult to deal with him. In order to hone his combat ability, he deliberately increased the difficulty for himself, so he didn't use this skill. But it was different this time. There were tens of thousands of devil arowanas here. If tens of thousands of devil arowanas were to come at him at the same time, even with his level 5 dragon will, he could not withstand it. Therefore, to be on the safe side, he used the skill. The devil dragonfish were attracted by the destruction he had caused, and all of them used their telekinesis to investigate. When Immortal saw that none of the devil dragonfish had noticed him, he took the opportunity to sneak up to another devil dragonfish. He punched at the devil arowana. Bang! The magma sac of the devil arowana exploded once again. The entire body of the devil arowana was once again half grilled and half boiled. Of course, Immortal had already teleported away before it could become a grilled fish or a boiled fish. He activated the stealth camouflage skill again. Sometimes, he could even disguise himself as a small devil arowana. The surrounding devil arowanas were a little confused. How could this devil arowana be so small? But they didn't care too much. Just like that, Immortal changed places after every shot. Within half an hour, he had killed thousands of devil arowanas. He had also obtained tens of thousands of drops of Titan dragon blood. At this point, the devil arowanas finally realized that there was a big problem. Therefore, all of the devil arowanas were on high alert. Their telekinesis was actually connected into a large area. It covered the entire area within a few hundred kilometers. In this situation, Immortal's stealth camouflage skill was no longer useful. Although this skill could reflect telekinesis to investigate. But that was when it was still. If you were constantly on the move, it would be impossible for you to evade detection. Immortal had already expected this. He did not hesitate. After killing another devil arowana, he quickly flew forward. Behind him, the devil arowanas discovered this human. They used their telekinesis to investigate, wanting to kill this human. But Immortal was too fast, and he kept flashing left and right in front of them. In this way, the devil arowanas had lost their target. Their telekinesis could not lock onto Immortal at all. Occasionally, a few devil arowanas' telekinesis would coincidentally lock onto Immortal. But Immortal's dragon will had reached level 5. It was naturally impossible for a few devil arowanas' telekinesis to cause harm to Immortal. Thus, the previous scene appeared once again. Immortal kept flying in front. Behind him, a large group of devil arowanas caught up. But this time, the group of devil arowanas was a few hundred times bigger than before. One should know that each devil arawana's body was about 70 meters long. And this was a non-combat state. When they chased after Immortal, they were already in combat state. Each devil arowana was more than 700 meters long. Tens of thousands of devil arowanas that were more than 700 meters long. What a spectacular scene. When the other wild beasts saw this huge and terrifying group of devil arowanas, they quickly fled in all directions. Immortal was constantly flashing in the front, trying to escape. But occasionally he would turn back and kill a few devil arowanas. If this scene was seen by others, they would definitely be shocked. A human being chased by so many huge creatures. Not only did he not panic, but he also killed a few whenever he had the chance. This was really shocking. But Immortal did not have endless energy in his body. So after 2 hours he was a little tired. Looking at the group of devil arowanas that did not seem to decrease, Immortal was a little depressed. If this continued, when would he be able to kill all the devil arowanas? Fortunately, after more than 10 minutes, Immortal found another deep cave. The cave was not wide, about 100 meters in diameter. There was no danger inside. He immediately flew in the direction of the cave. Soon he entered the cave. The huge group of devil arowanas behind him was blocked outside. The entrance of the cave was too small for the group of devil arowanas. They could only enter by transforming into their normal size. And at most, only 2 could enter at a time. This way it was best for Immortal. He continued to fly deeper into the cave. It looked like a long and narrow tunnel. The devil arowanas behind him were like queuing up, one head followed by the other, and they swam in. Immortal turned back and killed a devil arowana, then continued to fly forward. Chapter 344. Immortal continued to move forward in the long and narrow tunnel. The group of devil dragonfish behind him could not enter in large numbers. They could only enter one by one. This gave Immortal a great opportunity. He kept teleporting over. After killing 1 or 2 devil dragonfish, he teleported away again. Just like that, as time passed, his combat skills and combat experience improved rapidly. When he was tired from the battle, he would enter the dragon cave to rest. After resting, he would come out to fight again. He continued to explore as he fought. The dark tunnel at the bottom of the sea was very long. Moreover, there were often forks in the tunnel. Every fork in the road looked similar to the main road. Every fork was very long. Even with Immortal's dragon consciousness, he could not reach the end. Fortunately, he was not in a hurry. He randomly chose a tunnel and continued to explore. When he could not reach the end, he would teleport back and continue to take another fork. As a result, he spent more than 10 days before he finally reached the end of it. At the end of the tunnel, there was a cave entrance. However, Immortal's dragon consciousness could detect that there seemed to be some kind of enchantment around the cave entrance. His dragon consciousness could not reach inside. Moreover, he could not reach inside no matter what he used. Of course, he could not pass through the enchantment either. This path was impassable. Next, Immortal spent another 5 days. Finally, they had finished exploring every fork in the underground tunnel. The other forks were basically dead ends. At the end of these forks, there was either an erupting underwater volcano or a large group of mutated wild beasts. The only way out was the cave entrance that was blocked by the enchantment. However, Immortal could not pass through the enchantment no matter how hard he tried. However, he did not intend to go in. His goal was still to kill the group of devil dragonfish. Finally, after half a month, he had killed most of the devil dragonfish. On this day, there was a notification in his mind. Dragon consciousness can be upgraded. Upgrade now? Immortal was delighted. Upgrade. This upgrade will take 24 hours. Dragon consciousness cannot be used within 24 hours. The system prompted. Immortal immediately took out the dragon's cave. After entering the dragon cave, he could no longer use his dragon will. At the same time, he glanced at the system backpack in his mind. In his backpack, including his personal warehouse, there were probably 100,000 drops of dragon blood in total. This did not include the dragon blood he had consumed every day for the past half a month. While he was in the dragon's den, he could take advantage of the time he spent in the dragon's den to devour all the dragon blood. Thus, Immortal continued to consume the dragon's blood. He was no longer pouring it into his mouth drop by drop. Instead, it was 10 drops in a row. Every hour, he could consume more than 300,000 drops. In just over 10 minutes, he had consumed all of the giant dragon's blood. It was also at this moment that his body began to heat up again. His body temperature was rapidly rising. Immortal was overjoyed. His level was finally going to increase. It was just like any other time. When his body was already boiling to the point where he could not bear it, it was as if a flood had broken through a dam. His body seemed to become unobstructed in an instant. His entire body was baptized by a huge amount of energy. Finally, after 5 minutes, his body temperature, which had reached its limit, began to drop rapidly. He looked at the attribute interface in his mind. Name Immortal, level 8 Scavenger, level 5 Xianxia, evolution path, Titan Dragon. He had reached level 8 Scavenger and was one step closer to becoming a scavenger. According to Immortal's previous speculation, the Titan Dragon's blood that he was consuming now was actually equivalent to changing his blood step by step. When he became a scavenger in the future, he should be able to transform into a Titan Dragon after the blood change was completed. Imagining transforming into a giant dragon and soaring through the sky, Missouri sure could not help but feel a surge of emotion. After a while, the excitement in his heart faded slightly. Immortal closed his eyes to rest. After a month of fighting, his spirit was already very tired. He really needed a break to recharge his body and spirit. He slept for more than 20 hours. When he woke up, he took a look in his mind. Name Immortal, level 8 Scavenger, level 6 Xianxia, evolution path, Titan Dragon. Immortal estimated that with his level 6 dragon will, he could suppress a level 1 scavenger with his telekinesis alone. If he went all out, he could crush a level 2 scavenger even without using the sea dragon clone. It was simply impossible for other hunters to achieve this. His own strength had increased to level 8, so Immortal transferred his consciousness to the sea dragon clone. He glanced at its level. Species, sea dragon, level 6 mutant beast. Ability, evolution by devouring, dragon will attack. Click to expand. In the month that he had not controlled it, the sea dragon clone had also increased by 1 level. Immortal was quite satisfied. After all, ordinary mutant beasts took at least 10 years to increase by 1 level. Immortal could not be dissatisfied. But now that Immortal had become a level 8 scavenger, the limit of the sea dragon clone was a level 8 mutant beast. Before Immortal went to the corpse village and the Tiandao sect, he had to upgrade the sea dragon clone to a level 8 mutant beast. Only then could he deal with the level 7 or even level 8 scavenger in the corpse village and the Tiandao sect. However, after a month of fighting, Immortal was indeed mentally exhausted. He planned to go back to the base and stay for a few days. Using the Dragon Shadow step, he returned to the base in less than 2 minutes. In the base, when everyone saw Immortal return, they were all excited. They all came forward to greet him. Emma and Happy also came forward to greet him. Immortal sized up Happy a few times before he patted her head and said, "Don't worry." "Well, not bad, you didn't lose weight." Happy had a look of enjoyment on her face as Immortal rubbed her head. She had liked Brother Emo rubbing her head since she was young. But now that Brother Emo was often outside, it was rare for him to rub her head. Emma, who was next to her, had undisguised envy in her eyes. Everyone finished greeting him. Immortal called the little monk over and asked, "How many mechas do we have in the base now?" The little monk replied, "We produced them ourselves, plus those we got from other forces. We have more than 300 mechas in total." Hearing this, Immortal pondered for a moment. He said, "Can we get 500 mechas in a month?" The little monk replied, "If we can gather enough, then we can. But after 500 mechas at most, we will run out of materials to produce mechas. Chapter 345. Little Monk said, although we can gather 500 units, after that, we will run out of materials to produce the mechas. Emo sure didn't seem to care. It doesn't matter. Just produce as much as you want. After a month, there will be a large amount of materials to replenish. Everyone nodded excitedly when they heard this. In their eyes, Emo sure was omnipotent. No matter how difficult it was just a matter of a few words for Emo sure. Next, Emo sure asked about the specific situation in the base. After understanding the situation, he was quite satisfied with the overall situation. Although Guju Tao was a man, he was very careful. With him taking care of the base, everything was in good order. Emo sure asked again, in the past month have people from other forces come? Now, everyone in Yuzhou knew that the incomplete dragon vein and the map of the ancient dragon battlefield had been obtained by the World Society. They would naturally come to find them. Guju Tao nodded. 5 waves of people came, but our base's defense system is very strong. They basically all returned in defeat. When Emo sure heard this, he was somewhat dissatisfied. He meant that it was too easy for those guys to return in defeat. They should have never returned. Their strength is above that of a desolate hunter? Emo sure asked again. Guju Tao nodded. It seems so. Our base's defense can kill a level 1 desolate hunter, but it will be a little difficult to deal with a level 2 desolate hunter. Since they were able to escape, they should be above level 2. Emo sure raised his head and glanced at the sky. It seemed that it was time to upgrade the level of the virtual dragon palace after the matters in front of him were solved. In the next few days, Emo sure rested in the base. Apart from signing in every day as usual, he did nothing else. Every day, aside from bringing Happy to watch the sunset, she also brought Happy to watch the sunrise. His days were quite comfortable. At the same time, in the first-ranked corpse village, the village chief of the corpse village was also trying his best to improve the strength of the village. After inquiring about the cultivation of the people of corpse village, he said, "We lost a level 7 desolate hunter previously, so our overall strength dropped a level. However, we have made some progress in our research on the incomplete dragon veins. With the incomplete dragon vein, we can raise all 9 of our level 6 desolate hunters by 1 level in a month's time. At that time, our corpse village will have 10 level 7 desolate hunters. At that time, we'll start with the World Society." The villagers of the corpse village all raised their skinny arms and said, "Let's go. Make an example of the world meeting. Make an example of the world meeting. Make an example of the world meeting." At the same time, in the main hall of the second-ranked Tiandao sect, the sect master of the Tiandao sect gathered all the higher-ups and held a monthly meeting. He asked the Grand Elder who was sitting at the head of the table, "How's the research on the map of the ancient dragon battlefield coming along?" The Grand Elder replied, "We have already researched some things. Half a year later, when the ancient dragon battlefield opens, our Tiandao sect will send desolate hunters into the ancient dragon battlefield. With this map, not only can you avoid many dangers, but you can also obtain many good things. At that time, with those things, in 3 to 5 years, our Tiandao sect will become an existence that far surpasses the corpse village." The sect master of the Tiandao sect nodded. "Yes, that's right. However, the corpse village should have made some progress in their research on the incomplete dragon vein. They should be making a move on the world meeting soon. The world meeting may have a method to raise ordinary desolate hunters to desolate hunters. So, Second Elder, you have to pay close attention to the corpse village's movements. Once they make a move on the world meeting, we have to act immediately. It's best if we can get that method." The Second Elder nodded respectfully. "Yes, Sect Master." The Sect Master of the Tiandao sect narrowed his eyes slightly and said expectantly, "If we have that method and the map of the ancient dragon battlefield, it won't be long before our Tiandao sect rises." At the same time, in the Yuzhou military headquarters, the commander-in-chief of the military looked at the information about Emo Sure on the virtual screen of the computer. There's not much information about this kid. Beside him, Commander Lu Shuming nodded. Yes, there's not much. According to the information we've investigated, he seems to have appeared out of nowhere. The Commander-in-Chief narrowed his eyes slightly and said, however, there haven't been many geniuses like him in the entire history of the Flaming Origin continent. Lu Shuming nodded again. The Commander-in-Chief said, continue to try to contact him and see if you can get him to join the military. Lu Shuming smiled bitterly and said, this is difficult. The Commander-in-Chief also smiled, but it was a hearty laugh. For you, Lu Shuming, no matter how difficult it is, it's not a problem. Lu Shuming smiled bitterly again. But since the Commander-in-Chief had already given the order, what else could he do? I promised to complete the mission. His rocker was erect. But then he added another sentence. Commander-in-Chief, what if he still doesn't join? Hearing this, the Commander-in-Chief looked at Lu Shuming strangely. Old Lu, this isn't like you. Lu Shuming smiled bitterly. Commander-in-Chief, based on my last contact with this kid, it might not be too optimistic. The Commander-in-Chief said with a smile. Then tie him up and bring him to me. I'll personally teach him a lesson. Hearing this, Lu Shuming immediately straightened his body again and saluted. I promised to complete the mission. This time, he spoke resolutely and forcefully. Asking him to tie someone up was simple. But then he tried to persuade the Commander-in-Chief. But Commander-in-Chief, I think that kid is amenable to persuasion but not coercion. The Commander-in-Chief waved his hand. Cut the crap. Just do as I say. Lu Shuming immediately responded. Sir. After saying that, he saluted and quickly left. The Commander-in-Chief shifted his gaze from Lu Shuming's back to the virtual screen of the computer. Looking at Immortal's profile picture on the screen, he said, if such a genius can't be used by our military and instead joins the fight between those forces, it's really a waste of God's gift. Hunting Island Number 1. After resting for a few days, Immortal's spirit was completely relaxed. This morning, his consciousness was transferred to the body of the sea dragon clone. At this time, the sea dragon clone was not in the sea. Instead, it came to an island. The entire island was covered with towering mountains and ancient trees. It seemed that no one had ever set foot on this island. Immortal released his dragon's will to investigate. Now that he had advanced to level 6 Long Xianxia, his dragon's will could already explore a radius of 300 kilometers. In his investigation, this island was clearly a snake island. Chapter 346. In the investigation of Emo Shilong's mind, this place was like a snake island. Within his detection range, there were snakes of all sizes. Logically speaking, these snakes were basically level 6 mutated desolate beasts. The territory of each snake should be very large. And each snake wouldn't allow other snakes to appear in its territory, unless the snake was of the opposite sex. But there were at least 10 giant pythons in every square kilometer here. This puzzled Immortal. However, regardless of anything else, leveling up was the most important thing. Soon, he controlled the sea dragon clone to crawl forward. It didn't take long for him to encounter the first snake. This snake was a two-headed python. Two-headed pythons were very rare on Earth, but they were also very common on the Flaming Origin continent. This two-headed python was already 100 meters long in its non-combat form. It was about 5 meters thick. After discovering the sea dragon clone, it was about to attack it. With a thought, Immortal released Longwet. The sea dragon clone was shocked, and in the next moment, it prostrated on the ground. It didn't move. This was the magical effect of Longwei. With Immortal's current Longwei, in front of an opponent of the same level, as long as he released Longwei, the opponent would instantly prostrate on the ground in fear. The next step was easy. The sea dragon clone began to devour. Even though the giant snake was swallowed by the sea dragon clone, it was so scared that it didn't dare to resist. It was swallowed up without moving. Then, it continued to crawl forward. A moment later, he found a second giant python. It was a giant python with more than 10 sharp claws. On its back, there was a fan rib that looked like a fan. The fan rib was blood red in color. It was majestic. With just a glance, it made people feel that it wasn't to be trifled with. Immortal still released long way as before. The majestic python lay on the ground obediently, motionless. Immortal controlled the sea dragon doppelganger and swallowed it as easily as before. Just like that, in just an hour, Immortal controlled the sea dragon avatar to devour about 50 pythons. Devouring mutated beasts of the same level allowed one to level up quickly. Soon, the sea dragon avatar felt the pain of its muscles being torn apart. Immortal immediately returned to his body. Half an hour later, he returned to the sea dragon clone. Sure enough, the sea dragon clone had been upgraded. A level 7 mutated dire beast. A level 7 mutated dire beast was equivalent to a level 7 desolate hunter. In the entire Yuzhou province, he was definitely a powerhouse among powerhouses. However, to be on the safe side, Immortal planned to increase the strength of the sea dragon clone by another level. So he continued to control the sea dragon clone to devour the island. There were many snakes on the island. For ordinary people, this was definitely a place of great danger. But for the sea dragon clone, it was a place that could only be sought after to improve its strength. And now that the sea dragon clone had reached level 7, even if Immortal didn't use Long Way, the pythons would turn around and run away when they saw the sea dragon clone. Just like that, it devoured another 10 days of his time. Immortal could feel that the sea dragon clone could level up again after devouring for another 10 days at most. However, the snakes on the Snake Island seemed to have sensed that something was wrong. They no longer wandered around as blatantly as before. Instead, they all hid. There were even many snakes that were hiding deep underground. As a result, it would be somewhat difficult for the sea dragon clone to easily devour them again. Immortal also noticed this. Just from the point of letting the sea dragon clone devour and evolve, there was no need to stay on this Snake Island any longer. However, from the memories of some of the pythons that Immortal had devoured before, he knew that the reason these snakes gathered here seemed to be because there was something on this underground Snake Island. And that kind of thing was very attractive to these snakes. That was why the snakes no longer fought for territory and gathered here. But as for what that thing was, these snakes didn't know. They only knew that it was a natural attraction. Immortal was considering whether or not he should go and investigate what it was. Originally, with his cautious personality, he wouldn't take the risk. But now, his life-saving trump card wasn't good. Not to mention anything else, just the dragon cave alone would allow him to remain safe and sound in any kind of danger. Thinking of this, he began to crawl toward the center of the island. According to the snake's memories, the closer he got to the center of the island, the greater the attraction of that thing. It took him about half a day to finally crawl to the center of the island. Unlike the lush forest around him, there was a large barren mountain in the center of the island. There were no plants on the barren mountain. There wasn't even a blade of grass. On the barren mountain, only bare rocks could be seen. These rocks had obviously been there for tens of millions of years. But they hadn't been weathered. Immortal probed with his dragon consciousness. He found that this barren mountain was at least 100 miles long. On a cliff in this barren mountain, there was a cave. Many giant pythons were crawling toward this barren mountain. And their goal was obviously this cave. In his investigation, he found that there were hundreds of giant pythons of all kinds on the cliff below the cave, trying to climb up. But perhaps because the cliff was too smooth, none of the giant pythons succeeded. Immortal immediately controlled the sea dragon clone and spent more than 10 minutes at the bottom of the cliff. When the surrounding giant pythons saw the arrival of the sea dragon clone, they all turned their heads and opened their huge mouths. Hissing sounds came from their mouths. The folds of flesh on the back of their necks also kept opening, like colorful fans, demonstrating to the sea dragon clone. Immortal sneered. Wasn't it just a demonstration? Who didn't know how to do that? Long Way directly released it. The snakes immediately crawled on the ground. They didn't dare to move at all. Immortal didn't stand on ceremony and quickly crawled over. Without caring about anything else, he opened his mouth and swallowed. It took more than 10 minutes to swallow all the snakes. Then he looked at the cliff. He saw that the cliff was indeed very smooth. Ordinary snakes didn't have claws, so it was very difficult for them to climb up. But it wasn't difficult for Immortal's sea dragon clone to go up. He controlled the sea dragon clone and leaped. One leap was 500 meters. He put his sharp claws on the cliff and leaped again. Another 500 meters. After a few leaps, he had already arrived at the entrance of the cave on the cliff. A fishy smell immediately assaulted his nose. Immortal controlled the sea dragon clone and held his breath. He probed inside with his dragon consciousness. He saw that this cave was very deep. It went all the way into the belly of the mountain. At first, it was only 10 meters wide, but the deeper it went, the wider it became. In the end, it was more than 100 meters wide. Chapter 347. Immortal came to the entrance of the cave, and a strong stench immediately greeted him. It was so strong that Immortal almost vomited. He used his dragon consciousness to investigate inside. This cave wasn't deep, about 2 kilometers. In the deepest part of the cave, there was a giant python. This giant python, in its normal form, had already reached a length of 100 meters. If it was in its combat form, it would probably be 10 meters long. He glanced at it with the blood dragon's eye. Species, coiling python. Level 8 mutated desolate beast. A level 8 mutated desolate beast was a little difficult for the sea dragon clone. But it wasn't impossible to deal with. At this moment, the 100-meter-long body of the coiling python coiled into a huge circle of snakes. In the center of the snake circle was something that seemed to be embedded in the ground. That thing was a translucent sphere. The sphere was about a foot in diameter. Inside the sphere, energy was dense. It was obvious that it contained a huge amount of energy. Immortal understood. No wonder those giant pythons all wanted to climb up this cliff and come to this cave. It was all for this sphere. And this sphere had a fatal attraction to all the pythons on the entire Snake Island. Obviously, it was definitely not simple. Thinking of this, Immortal's heart itched. With the system's character, he should be able to obtain that thing if he signed in here. He immediately signed in his mind. System, sign in. The system's voice quickly sounded. Sign in successful. Sign in location, Snake King Cave on Snake Island. Sign in reward, summon giant python, can summon any species of snake of any level. Duration, 5 minutes. F***CK. Immortal couldn't help but curse in his heart. Although he could guess the system's reward most of the time. But it wasn't 100 different types. Fortunately, he obtained this skill, so it wasn't too much of a loss. It seemed that he had to think of a way to defeat this giant python. Thinking of this, he slowly crawled into the cave. The coiling python in the depths of the cave also discovered that an unfamiliar creature had invaded. It opened its mouth and stretched out its long snake tongue, letting out an unpleasant hiss. Hiss, hiss. This kind of sound was even more ear-piercing than that of ordinary snake-type creatures. It made one's scalp tingle. However, Immortal remained unmoved and continued to crawl inside. The coiling blood python became even angrier. They began to move towards the entrance of the cave. Immortal sensed that it was coming towards him and stopped. However, when he controlled the sea dragon clone to stop, the coiling stench python also stopped. Immortal had no choice but to let out an angry roar. Roar. Then he continued to climb inside. The coiling blood python once again hissed in protest. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Then, it quickly swam towards Immortal. Both sides were very fast. 10 seconds later, Immortal saw the coiling blood python. At the back of the giant python's neck, the folds of flesh opened up like 2 huge fans. The joints on his body seemed to be alive as they wriggled continuously. A pair of blood-red eyes, emitting a gaze that made people feel a chill in their hearts. If an ordinary person, even a desolate hunter, saw such a giant python, they would probably want to retreat. However, Immortal, who was usually cautious, did not retreat at this time. Instead, he let out an even louder roar. Roar! He charged towards the coiling blood python. The coiling blood python opened its bloody mouth. A pair of fangs were like two long spears, piercing straight towards Immortal's head. The two mutated desolate beasts were about to collide, like Mars colliding with Earth. However, at this moment, Immortal controlled the sea dragon clone and suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, Immortal was already in the deepest part of the cave. And that sphere was already close at hand. He stretched out his two front claws and crazily scratched. Although even the ground in the cave was made of hard stone, that sphere seemed to be firmly embedded in the hard ground. However, the sea dragon clone's claws were extremely sharp. Immortal easily broke the ground with his claws. Gravel splattered in all directions. In just a few strokes, the thing was dug out. However, what surprised Immortal was that this was not a complete sphere, but less than 1/10 of a sphere. This surprised Immortal. This should be a fragment of something. Just a fragment could make all the giant pythons crazy. One could imagine how terrifying the energy contained in this thing would be if it was complete. The coiling blood python saw that it had been tricked and was immediately furious. Hiss! It let out an even more hair-raising hiss. It turned its head and attacked Immortal in the deepest part of the cave. However, Immortal once again activated the dragon shadow step. That's right, now the sea dragon clone could use almost all of Immortal's skills, so the dragon shadow step was naturally not a problem. Using the dragon shadow step, Immortal was already outside the cave in one step. The coiling blood python was instantly furious. It let out a long hiss. Hiss! Its hiss seemed to be summoning all the snakes on the island. Immediately, under the investigation of Immortal's dragon will, thousands of giant pythons appeared in all directions. Under the command of the coiling blood python, they surrounded Immortal. Behind Immortal, the coiling blood python also surrounded Immortal at an extremely fast speed. When Immortal saw this scene, not only did he not escape, but he also stopped. The coiling blood python led a group of giant pythons and surrounded Immortal so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. Those giant pythons had received orders from the coiling blood python, and they had been eyeing that thing for a long time. How could they tolerate other creatures taking it away? Hiss! The coiling blood python gave an order. The thousands of giant pythons around immediately charged towards Immortal. However, Immortal only moved his mind. He activated the Summon Giant Python skill. In the next moment, the thousands of giant pythons suddenly stopped. Immortal moved his mind again. The thousands of giant pythons immediately turned their heads and attacked the coiling blood python. Seeing this, the coiling blood python was shocked. Never in its wildest dreams would it have imagined that its people would one day gang up on it. It opened its mouth angrily, wanting to roar and order its people to retreat. However, at this moment, a dignified voice sounded in its heart. "Don't move." This voice was like a brilliant sun, like a great bell, and it caused it to be unable to arouse the slightest thought of resisting. Therefore, it immediately stopped resisting and remained motionless. In the next moment, dozens of giant pythons pounced over at the same time. Although the coiling blood python was strong and its armor was hard, it couldn't withstand the attacks of so many giant pythons. In just over 10 minutes, almost all the scales on the coiling blood python's body had been peeled off. Its entire body was dripping with blood. It was a tragic sight. It was also at this moment that Immortal controlled the sea dragon clone to devour the coiling blood python in big mouthfuls. Chapter 348. This coiling python never dreamed that one day it would die at the hands of its own people. Of course it didn't. It should be known that Immortal's summon python skill ignored the python's level. Not to mention that it was just a small coiling python. Even if it was a stronger mutated wild beast, as long as Immortal willed it, it would have no choice but to obediently surrender. Of course, it didn't have hands. At this moment, Immortal saw that the coiling python was dead. He immediately controlled the sea dragon clone to devour its body. It took about 5 minutes to devour the entire coiling python. At this moment, a tearing pain came from the sea dragon clone. Immortal didn't have time to think. He let the coiling python hide in the dragon cave. Then his consciousness returned to his body. About half an hour later, Immortal returned to the body of the sea dragon avatar. The sea dragon clone's body was now only 12 meters long. Immortal suddenly felt like he had been ked. Damn, when other wild beasts became stronger, their bodies would get bigger. But the sea dragon clone's strength increased, but its body became smaller and smaller. It didn't look majestic at all. He glanced at its level in his mind. Species, sea dragon. Level 8 mutant wild beast. Ability, evolution by devouring. Click to expand. Seeing this, Immortal was secretly excited. A level 8 mutant wild beast was equivalent to a level 8 desolate hunter. On the flaming origin continent where there were very few desolate hunters, a level 8 mutant wild beast was definitely the strongest of the strong. Next, Immortal studied the thing that he had dug out of the coiling python's cave. This should be a fragment of something. According to the size of this fragment, the original diameter of this thing was probably about 1 meter. He probed it with his dragon mind and found that this small fragment contained a huge amount of energy. He asked in his mind, "System, you're very knowledgeable. What is this?" The system replied, "Dragon Ball fragment? Huh." Immortal was very surprised. Dragon Ball fragment? Why is there a Dragon Ball fragment here? The system replied, "In ancient times, there were still dragons on the flaming origin continent. After some of the dragons died, there was a very small chance that their dragon orbs would be preserved. After hundreds of millions of years, these Dragon Balls will shatter and become Dragon Ball fragments." When Immortal heard this, he was even more surprised. Aren't Dragon Balls only found in the bodies of Eastern divine dragons? Why do dragons have them too? The system replied, "The Dragon Clan's energy is enormous and needs to be stored in the Dragon Pearl. Therefore, whether it's the Eastern Dragon God or the Western Dragon God, they all have Dragon Balls in their bodies." Immortal nodded. "All right, I believe you. But can the sea dragon clone swallow this Dragon Ball fragment directly?" The system replied, "The essence of the Dragon Balls is the crystallization formed by the compression of energy. When it encountered a living body, it could be activated again. Therefore, there is no problem with the sea dragon clone devouring it." Immortal was overjoyed. He immediately controlled the sea dragon clone to devour the Dragon Ball fragment. The Dragon Ball fragment entered the body of the sea dragon clone and quickly released a small part of its energy. Just this small part of energy caused the sea dragon clone's body to undergo a qualitative change. All the cells in its body were strengthened by this energy. And the degree of strengthening was far greater than any previous time. The blood vessels and muscle tissue all over its body were also rapidly strengthening. The scales all over its body were also constantly changing. The scales before were pure black. Although they looked like they had a metallic luster, it wasn't very obvious. But now, its scales had a more metallic texture. The dozens of barbs on its head were no longer so ferocious. Instead, they began to soften. 2 small bulges appeared on its forehead. It was as if something was about to drill out of them. Its 4 legs were thicker than before. The claws on each leg were also sharper than before. It looked like they were cast in copper and iron. Its body was no longer as wide as a lizard's body, but had become thinner and longer. Overall, it seemed to be slightly similar to the divine dragon that was rumored in Wuxia. Immortal secretly guessed in his heart. A single fragment of the Dragon Pearl had caused such a change in the Azure Dragon avatar. In that case, would the Sea Dragon avatar be able to transform into a real Shenron after he collected all the fragments of the Dragon Ball? He couldn't help but be filled with anticipation. When the time came, his body would be a Western dragon. The Sea Dragon clone was an Eastern divine dragon. Did it have to be so abnormal? Then he looked at his current level. His level still hadn't changed. After all, the upper limit of the Sea Dragon clone was determined by Immortal's body. However, Immortal could feel that the Sea Dragon clone had so much energy in its body that it didn't need to evolve through devouring to level up in a short period of time. As long as his body leveled up, the Sea Dragon clone's level would immediately increase by 1. Understanding this, Emo sure couldn't help but feel happy. However, at this time, he could clearly feel that although the Dragon Ball fragment could increase his level, it didn't belong to him yet. He still needed to spend some time to slowly develop a tacit understanding with it. From there, it would slowly and truly recognize the Sea Dragon clone and eventually become a part of its body. So, Emo sure spent nearly 20 days. Every day, he did nothing but let the Sea Dragon clone sense the Dragon Ball fragment. After nearly 20 days, there was finally progress. The Sea Dragon clone had almost perfectly merged with the Dragon Ball fragment. The Dragon Ball fragment was almost embedded in the flesh of the Sea Dragon clone. Phew! Emo sure let out a long breath. He finally succeeded. Now that he had this Dragon Ball fragment, the improvement brought to the Sea Dragon clone wasn't just in terms of level. It was also in terms of combat power. The Sea Dragon clone was only a level 8 mutant wild beast. However, with the Dragon Ball fragment, killing a level 10 desolate hunter who was 2 levels higher than him was a piece of cake. It wasn't until now that Emo sure was completely relieved. He didn't believe that there were grand desolate masters in the Tiandao sect and the corpse village. And as long as they were below the grand desolate master level, his Sea Dragon clone could easily kill them in seconds. Emo sure looked to the east where the sun slowly appeared. He thought to himself, "Corpse village, Tiandao sect, I'll find you soon." It was also at this moment that he jumped out of the dragon cave. And this time, when the hundreds and thousands of giant pythons saw the appearance of the Sea Dragon clone, they were no longer as fierce as before. Instead, they all turned around and ran. What a joke! This was only a level 8 mutant wild beast. If they weren't careful, they might even lose their lives here. If they didn't run now, what were they waiting for? Chapter 349. When Emo sure controlled the Sea Dragon avatar and came out of the dragon cave again, the giant pythons no longer surrounded him like before. Instead, they turned around and fled. Emo sure's current body was only 12 meters long. But because of the Dragon Ball fragment in his body, the long way on his body was more than 10 times stronger than before. Even if he didn't deliberately release the long way, it still caused a huge sense of oppression to these giant pythons in front of him. So these giant pythons turned around and fled. At this moment, Emo sure moved his mind. The huge long way was directly released. Suddenly, all the giant pythons within a 10-kilometer radius crawled on the ground, not daring to move. Emo sure was suddenly in a good mood. In other words, as long as he used the Sea Dragon avatar to release the long way, even a level 7 desolate hunter would have to crawl on the ground and not dare to move. Next, Emo sure didn't devour these giant pythons anymore. Now that he had been promoted to level 8, devouring these level 7 giant pythons didn't have much effect. And with the Dragon Ball fragment, he didn't need to devour them anymore. He moved his mind. Dragon Shadow Step was used. In just a moment, he had returned to the base. This time, he was gone for another month. Once again, the crowd gathered around. Happy kept looking at Emo sure to see if Emo sure had lost weight. Was he injured? Although she knew in her heart that it was very difficult to hurt Emo sure. Even if he was really injured, he would recover in a very short period of time. But she was still worried. This was the so-called concern makes you confused. After greeting everyone, Emo sure called the little monk and Guijutao. He asked the little monk, "How many mechas are there in the base now?" The little monk replied, "There are 402 mechas in total. We wanted to continue production, but we really don't have the materials now. And the whole island is full of desolate beasts. It's also very difficult for us to go out and find materials." Emo sure nodded with satisfaction. More than 400 mechas were enough to crush the Tiandao sect. If they were to go up against the corpse-chasing village, they might not be able to crush them, but they should be able to gain a significant advantage. The little monk continued asking, "Boss, last time you said that you would have the materials soon. But now," Emo sure smiled and said, "Don't worry. If we don't have the materials, someone will deliver them. Can you control so many mechas at once?" The small monk nodded confidently. "Amit ba. Boss, you still don't believe me?" not to mention controlling more than 400 mechas. Even if there are 4,000 mechas, I can still control them. Emoshir nodded. Emoshir smiled. Don't worry. In the near future, we will have 4,000 mechas. At that time, our world society will be able to dominate the entire Yu prefecture and march into the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. Then, Emoshir asked Guijutao, who was next to him. How's our defense system? Guijutao replied, we've already built a few lines of defense. We found a few plasma cannons in the defense system of Hunting Island No. 1. These plasma cannons are very useful against hunters below the level of Desolation Master. As for those above the level of Desolation Master, Emoshir said, you don't have to worry about those above the level of Desolation Master. Guijutao nodded. Okay, understood. He knew that Mr. Emo seemed to have installed some kind of powerful cannon in the base. This cannon could almost kill a level 1 Desolation Master. Strangely, they had never seen such a powerful cannon. However, Mr. Emo had too many secrets, so he was too lazy to pursue them. For the next few days, Emoshir stayed in the base. Firstly, the Sea Dragon avatar had just been promoted to level 8 and had absorbed the Dragon Ball fragment. It needed time to settle down. Secondly, he planned to spend a few days to see how strong the mechas and the Desolation Masters in the base were. In these 5 days, Emoshir had a rough understanding of the mechas and the combat power of the Desolate Hunters in the base. The advantage of the base was the large number of mechas. There were 402 of them. Other than the military, no other force in Yuzhou had so many mechas. However, the advantage of mechas was only reflected in dealing with Desolation Masters. If they encountered Desolation Masters, they would not be very effective, unless they ambushed them in advance or launched a sneak attack. As for the Desolation Masters below level 2, he could deal with them alone. As for those above level 2, he would have to leave them to the Sea Dragon avatar. Overall, the number of Desolation Masters and above in the base was much less than that of other forces. However, with a bug like him and a strong Sea Dragon avatar, the strength of the world society was actually already the strongest in Yuzhou. Okay, let's rest for another day. We'll set off tomorrow to destroy the Tao of Heaven and slaughter the corpse hunters. At the same time, in the corpse village, the village chief was sitting cross-legged in the house, cultivating. At this time, a skinny old man outside the door said, "Village chief, it's a success." The village chief opened his eyes. A touch of joy flashed through his calm eyes. However, his voice was still calm and hoarse. Both of them have been promoted to level 7 Desolation Masters? The person outside said, "No, not 2 but 4. The village chief's eyes suddenly rippled. Although his voice was calm, it was obvious that he was suppressing his calmness. This is really a pleasant surprise. Originally, they were counting on the incomplete dragon's vein to promote the 2 level 6 Desolation Masters in their village to level 7. Unexpectedly, the other 2 level 5 Desolation Masters also broke through to level 7 Desolation Masters with the help of the incomplete dragon's vein. As a result, there were now 5 level 7 Desolation Masters in the corpse village. With such strength, who else could there be? Inform Elder Gu to lead 50 Desolation Masters and 100 level 10 Desolation Masters to Hunting Island No. 1 immediately. No matter what, we have to get the secret of how they create Desolation Masters. Yes. Village Chief. The person outside turned around and left quickly. The village chief's eyes narrowed slightly in his sunken eye sockets. As long as he could get the World Society's method of creating Desolation Masters, he could create a large number of Desolation Masters. Then, the corpse village could try to become one of the top 100 forces in the 16 prefectures of Yun. After a moment, his eyes closed again. His entire body looked like a piece of dead wood, not moving at all. Not long after the people of the corpse village set off, in the Tiandao sect. The sect master of the Tiandao sect was teaching his last disciple the cultivation method. At this moment, a voice came from outside the door. "Sect master, the corpse village has moved. They have a level 7 Desolation Master leading 150 people." Hearing this, the sect master of the Tiandao sect frowned slightly. After a moment, he said, "It seems that our level 7 Desolation Master has to be exposed in advance. Inform the Elder to lead 30 Desolation Masters and 200 level 10 Desolation Masters to Hunting Island number 1. Let's see if we can pick up anything." Chapter 350. Early in the morning. On the distant sea, a blood-red sun tore through the clouds, broke free from the sea, and jumped into the sky. The sea was also reflected by the blood-red sun into a blood-red color. Between the blood-red sea and the sky, 2 teams of people were flying over quickly on hoverboards. At the same time, on the first hunting island, Immortal had eaten the breakfast made by the newbie Happy. He was gathering his team and planning to destroy the Tiandao sect. At this moment, the virtual sentry tower's alarm sounded in his mind. Beep, 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 beep. The alarm sounded very urgent, which meant that either the enemy was too strong, or they were very close to him. Immortal's dragon mind spread out to a radius of 300 kilometers. He saw 2 groups of people flying towards Hunting Island number 1 at high speed. One team was all skinny. Obviously, they were from the corpse village. As for the other group of people, they intentionally or unintentionally released a domineering aura with every raise of their hands and feet. Of course, they were from the Tiandao sect. Immortal used the blood dragon's eye to check the strength of these people again. There was a smile on his face. The strongest among them were 2 level 7 desolate hunters. The rest of the desolate hunters were basically level 1 to level 5. As for the psychic masters, the other party sent about 50 of them. The 2 strongest ones were both level 10 psychic masters. Of course, both forces brought mechas. Both had 50 of them. The corners of Immortal's mouth couldn't help but curl into a smile. "I haven't gone to find you yet, but you came first." Thinking of this, he ordered little monk next to him. "Control all the mechas and ambush them on all sides of the base. Be ready to attack at any time." Everyone was stunned. Didn't he say that he was going to destroy the Tiandao sect? Why was he going to fight now? However, they never questioned Immortal's orders in the slightest. Little monk nodded excitedly. "Okay." As he spoke, he crossed his fingers and tightened them. There was a series of cracking sounds from his knuckles. The keyboard on his waist had been opened. His hands kept dancing on the virtual keyboard. In the base, the 402 mechas suddenly flew out in all directions of the base. Finally, they found a suitable hiding place. Immortal then ordered the rest of the team. "While fighting in the base, the rest of you only have one mission, and that is to protect the little monk." Everyone immediately responded, "Yes." Soon, all the desolate hunters and psychic grandmasters surrounded Immortal. After 2 months, another group of psyche masters had appeared in the base. The total number of great psyche masters had already reached more than 20. The strongest psychic master had already reached level 3. At the same time, more than 50 hunters were added to the base. It was all thanks to the virtual dragon palace that so many scavenger hunters and psychic grandmasters had been recruited in 2 months. However, Immortal was still not satisfied with this speed. Right now, what the base needed the most was high-end combat power. There were still too few desolate hunters. It seemed that after dealing with Tiandao sect and Corpse Village, he had to find a way to upgrade the level of the Dragon Palace as soon as possible. After making all the preparations, Immortal used his draconic telekinesis to detect the location of those people. Soon, these people entered the range of 100 kilometers. He had already entered the range of the virtual Dragon Palace. However, Immortal did not give the order to open fire immediately. Instead, he waited. After entering the range of 100 kilometers, the speed of these people slowed down. It took them more than 20 minutes to arrive at a distance of 2 kilometers from the base. Among the group of people from Corpse Village, the level 7 hunters slowly flew forward. He glanced at Hunting Island number 1 below, his eyes full of disdain. Although Hunting Island number 1 was huge, the base below it was too small compared to their corpse-chasing village. Although Corpse Village had the word village in its name, It was actually very big. It was at least 10 times bigger than this small base below. This skinny old man had just come out of seclusion and did not know what had happened before. He had only received orders yesterday afternoon that he was to lead a team to flatten this place, and at the same time, to obtain some method of creating desolate hunters. He had not been active for a long time, so he had come to take a look. However, when he saw this base, he was greatly disappointed. This place was not even comparable to a village. How could such a small place produce strong people? It was already too much for them to have a few level 1 desolate hunters. How could they let him, a level 7 desolate hunter, lead a team to such a place? Were the upper echelons of the corpse-chasing village out of their minds? Were they thinking too highly of this place, or were they looking down on him, a level 7 desolate hunter? He shook his head slightly. In such a place, there was no need for him to do anything. Since he wanted to go there, he signaled to a level 2 desolate hunter beside him. That level 2 desolate hunter understood and immediately shouted to the people below, "Leader of world society, Corpse Village is here. Come out and welcome us." In the base below, when everyone heard this, anger rose in their hearts. What's the big deal about Corpse Village? Why do they need our clan master to welcome them? In the factory of the base, Mo Sure sat in his office, looking at this group of people on the monitor screen. There was a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Ignorant guys. The desolate hunter of Corpse Village did not even take a defensive posture when he saw that there was no response from below. Were they looking down on Corpse Village? A trace of ruthlessness appeared on his skinny face. He shouted to the people below, "Leader of world society, come out and surrender in 10 seconds. Otherwise, your world society will be razed to the ground." After he finished speaking, there was still no response from the base below. Even the few people who were farming in the wheat fields below only glanced at the sky and continued with their work. Everyone in the chasing Corpse Village was enraged when they saw this. Corpse Village was the most powerful force in Yuzhou. As long as they were in Yuzhou, no matter where they went, everyone would give them some face. Now, it was fine if the leader of world society did not come out, but even a few farmers dared to ignore them. Was there any justice? Was there any king law? The level 2 desolate hunter frowned and started counting with his skinny mouth. 1, 2, 3. By the time he counted to 5, everyone in Corpse Village was ready. The multifunctional watches on their right hands were turned on. This multifunctional watch was connected to a wormhole space. In this wormhole space, there were hundreds and thousands of puppet corpses. Using puppets to fight was the corpse-chasing village's greatest killing move. A level 1 desolate hunter could control the corpse of a level 6 desolate hunter and attack it. Therefore, the people who were killed by the corpse-chasing village disciples were basically turned into puppets. They were released from the wormhole space during the battle. They could display extremely strong combat power. Chapter 351. 6. In the sky, the level 2 hunter was still counting. Not far away, the people from Tiandao sect all perked up. It had been a long time since they saw the Corpse Village in action. Today, they could see the Corpse Village in action. This gave them a better understanding of the Corpse Village's strength. On the ground, the people from the World Society didn't seem to care about the strong people in the sky at all. They continued to lower their heads and do their work. This made the level 2 desolate hunter burn with rage. They looked down on him too much. The people from the World Society really looked down on him too much. Since that was the case, he would let them have a taste of the Corpse Village's anger. Thinking of this, he sped up his counting. 7, 9. Just as the word 9 left his mouth, a voice suddenly rang out. Whoosh! A red beam of light suddenly appeared and directly pierced his abdomen. A large amount of energy leaked out of his dantian. His whole body lost the support of energy and instantly fell from the sky. Everyone in the Corpse Village was shocked. They hurriedly tried to catch the level 2 hunter who had fallen from the sky. However, at this moment, whoosh 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 whoosh, hundreds and thousands of fiery red light pillars suddenly shot over from all directions. Whoosh, a level 1 hunter's head was blown apart. Whoosh, the dantian of a level 3 hunter's abdomen was pierced. Whoosh, a level 2 hunter's chest was pierced with a big hole. As for those hunters, they had no resistance in front of these light beams. Basically, they were directly blown to pieces as soon as they were touched. The scene was suddenly chaotic. Not only the corpse village, but also the hunters from Tiandao sect were directly blown to pieces. Because they were almost deep in the center of the virtual dragon palace, the attacks came from all directions. At this moment, they couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Moreover, the mechas they brought were supposed to have defensive light shields. However, after being hit by the red beams of light, they didn't even have the chance to activate their defensive light shields. They were directly blown to pieces by the red beams of light. Seeing this, the elder of Tiandao sect's expression suddenly became serious. There was no way for the hunters to dodge such an attack. Only the hunters could dodge it. Furthermore, the other party's weapon had some sort of concealment technology that made it impossible to see it with the naked eye. He immediately roared, "Keyboard player, find their weapons for me and destroy them with the mecha." The keyboard player hurriedly operated the keyboard with both hands. However, after a moment, he shook his head in despair. First elder, infrared scanning, laser scanning, heat sensing, sound wave detection, no detection method can find their weapons. The first elder's expression became even more solemn. If they couldn't even find the other party's weapon, how were they going to fight this battle? The desolate hunters were killed by the beams of light one by one. Even some of the desolate hunters were injured. He hurriedly ordered, "Hunters, those with wormhole teleportation devices, retreat first." Before his voice had died away, about 30 hunters who owned wormhole transmission devices had started the devices one after another. In the next moment, their bodies turned into balls of bluish-white light. He disappeared into the air. It was the same situation in Corpse Village. "Elder, their weapons are invisible, we can't find them." The elder's sunken eye sockets revealed a trace of solemnity. "Nonsense, I know that their weapons are invisible, but even if they are invisible to human eyes, are they invisible to all kinds of detection methods?" This was originally a rhetorical question. However, the keyboard player of Corpse Village nodded seriously. "Yes, elder." The elder scolded again. "Trash." As he spoke, he flew toward the place where the beam of light had just shot out. "Even if it is invisible, I will still destroy it for you." Soon, he flew to the place where the beam of light had shot out. However, he still couldn't detect the existence of any weapons. Xiao, another beam of light shot towards him from a place that was only 5 meters in front of him. He moved his body to the side and dodged the beam of light. Then, an iron stick-shaped genetic weapon condensed on his right arm. He ruthlessly smashed it toward the place where the beam of light had shot out. Woo, because the speed was too fast, the iron stick-shaped genetic weapon created an air-piercing sound in the air. However, such a swift and powerful strike hit nothing but air even after swinging out half a circle. It was as if there was no weapon there at all. The level 7 desolate hunter snorted coldly. This was obviously some kind of camouflage. He could clearly shoot out a beam of light to attack, but he couldn't hit it. This should be some kind of advanced technique. However, all technical means were useless in the face of powerful strength. Thinking of this, his genetic weapon quickly turned fiery red. It looked like a red-hot iron stick. Then, a red-white beam of light quickly condensed on the red-hot iron stick. The next moment, a red-white beam of light shot out. Xiao, it shot toward the location of the weapon. However, the beam of energy he shot out directly passed through the place where the weapon was. It was as if there was nothing there. Xiao, 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 Xiao. He shot out several more beams of energy in succession. However, all the energy passed through the place where the weapon was. Instead, several beams of light shot out from where the weapon was, killing several of the zombie village's scavenger hunters. This made the level 7 desolate hunter doubt his life. Damn, what kind of weapon is this? When it attacked, it could kill the disciples of Corpse Village. When he attacked, it was as if it didn't exist at all. Did it have to be so shameless? He didn't know that the virtual Dragon Palace didn't exist for others. The virtual sentry tower in the virtual Dragon Palace naturally didn't exist for others. Not to mention that he was only a level 7 Desolate Hunter. Even if the strongest person in the Flaming Origin continent came, he wouldn't be able to attack the virtual sentry tower. The level 7 Desolate Hunter was doubting his life at this moment. Only then did he order the disciples of Corpse Village, disciples with teleportation devices, leave as soon as possible. Although those disciples had teleportation devices before, they didn't dare to retreat without receiving orders. After all, if they were treated as deserters, even if they escaped death today, they would be executed when they went back. And because the level 7 Desolate Hunter's order was too late, half of their core disciples were already dead. Only about 20 people were left. These 20 people quickly activated the device and fled. The level 7 Desolate Hunter only felt that he had been greatly humiliated. He, a level 7 Desolate Hunter, had personally led a team, but now he had lost half of his core disciples before even seeing the face of the target. This was simply a great humiliation. Thinking of this, he roared, "Keyboard player, attack!" Chapter 352. The level 7 Desolate Hunter roared at the keyboard player not far away. Keyboard player, raise the ground below to the ground. Hearing this, the keyboard player immediately nodded. Yes, village chief. His fingers kept dancing on the keyboard. Soon, the remaining 40 mechas turned their cannons and planned to bombard the ground. However, at this moment, the 40 mechas were attacked by hundreds and thousands of tiny light beams almost at the same time. These tiny light beams were only as thick as a finger. Compared to the light beams shot out by the mechas, it was less than 1/10. However, after each light beam hit a mecha, the surface of the mecha would quickly lose its defensive light shield. At the same time, mechas from all directions quickly rose into the air. 10, 20, 50, 100, 200, 300. 400. Each of the mechas released a beam of energy. In the sky, from all directions, beams of light kept bombarding the enemy mechas in the center. The entire sky was suddenly reflected in a gorgeous light. On the ground, the humans looked at the scene in the sky with shock on their faces. Mecha battle, laser energy. This was a scene they had only seen in movies before, but now it was happening in front of their eyes. It made them feel unreal. However, they were just shocked. They were not worried, because they all knew that no matter how strong the enemy was, Mr. Mo could deal with it. In the factory workshop, little Monk's fingers danced quickly. At the same time, 4 mechanical arms popped out from his belt. In total, there were 6 arms and 30 fingers. They danced on the keyboard, leaving afterimages. Originally, on the Flaming Land, it was already the limit for one person to control 50 mechas at the same time. After a long period of experimentation, the little monk developed this mechanical arm that was specially used to control mechas. These mechanical arms were connected to his consciousness as if they were his own arms. With 30 fingers, he could operate up to 500 mechas at most. This was truly a case of one person being able to fight against an entire army. In the sky, within a few seconds, more than 20 mechas from the Tiandao sect and the Corpse Village were destroyed. When the people of the Tiandao sect saw this, they were all a little confused. So many mechas. How is this possible? Could the World Society's leader be the illegitimate son of the military? A mecha brigade. During the Martial Arts Assembly, we thought that was the true strength of the World Assembly. Who would have thought that their true strength was far beyond our imagination? Everyone from the Chasing Corpse village was dumbfounded. Never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined that the World Society would have so many mechas. One had to know that each mecha was equivalent to a level 1 hunter. More than 400 mechas were equivalent to more than 400 level 1 hunters. Damn it! Hunters above level 2. The first elder of the Tiandao sect said. Only level 2 hunters and above would have a chance of winning against a mech. At the same time, the level 7 desolate hunter from the corpse village also ordered, level 1 desolate hunters, pay attention to dodge. Level 2 desolate hunters, destroy those mechas. As a result, more than 100 hunters from the two factions rushed towards the surrounding mechas. However, right at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky. This shadow was 800 meters long. Its body was somewhat like a snake. The scales on its body had a metallic texture. It was as if they were made of metal. There were 4 thick legs on its body. Sharp claws were at the end of the legs. There was a triangular ridge on its back. Among the more than 10 soft spikes on its head, there were 2 small bulges. It looked as if something was about to grow out of it. The sea dragon clone. At this moment, the sea dragon clone was 50% similar to the Wuxia dragon god. At this moment, the sea dragon clone had a fragment of the dragon ball in its body. Although it couldn't really fly, it could stay in the air for a short period of time. As soon as it appeared, the long way on its body was immediately released. The desolate hunters who were originally rushing towards the surrounding mechas, those who were below level 5, couldn't resist at all. The fear in their hearts made them involuntarily want to crawl on the ground. As a result, they fell from the sky one after another. Pa 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 pa. Because of the fear in their hearts, they fell extremely fast. Cracks appeared on the ground below. But even so, they didn't dare to look up at the huge creature at all. As for the desolate hunters above level 5, although they could still barely stay awake, they didn't dare to attack anymore. These desolate hunters were all very experienced and knowledgeable. They had seen huge creatures before. They had even seen creatures that were 1,000 meters long and 2,000 meters long. But this creature was different from any creature they had seen before. It seemed to have a natural deterrent force. As long as they looked at it, they would completely lose the thought of resisting. It was as if it was the most powerful and mysterious creature in the world. In front of it, humans seemed so small and vulnerable. The people in the base on the ground saw this huge creature suddenly appear. They couldn't help but exclaim, "Is this a dragon? A dragon god? It's really a dragon god?" When Happy saw this through the surveillance camera, he gestured at Immortal, who was by his side in surprise. "Brother Mo, is this the Wuxia dragon god?" Immortal smiled. "It's just a semi-finished product. It's not a real dragon god yet. Only when he found all the Dragon Ball fragments in the future could it evolve into a real Wuxia dragon god." As for why the dragon god in Wuxia legends appeared in this world, Immortal didn't care anymore. Vampires and zombies, weren't these things that only appeared in legends? At this moment in the sky, the level 7 desolate hunter looked at the 800-meter-long creature. Extreme fear rose in his heart. There was actually such a terrifying creature in the World Club. Damn it, what was the village chief doing? He didn't even report such important information to him. And he even sent an old man like him to die. It was too difficult for him. In his panic, he hurriedly tried to escape. And he didn't fly far away. He wasn't even sure if his speed could be compared to this creature's. So he didn't dare to take the risk to escape with his hoverboots. Instead, he directly opened the wormhole teleportation device. The next moment, his body turned into a blue-white ball of light and quickly disappeared. Immortal secretly shook his head. The virtual dragon palace was strong, but if the other party had the wormhole teleportation device, they could escape. System, after the virtual dragon palace is upgraded in the future, can it prevent the other party from escaping through the wormhole teleportation device? The system's voice quickly sounded. "Host, please explore on your own." You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.